Hi, I'm Ashwil Bosman, aka JT Bass, and you're watching From the Cape with Bass, hosted by Daniel Peterson.
Ashwil, can you tell us what your first musical experience was?
Hi, Daniel. My first musical experience was it basically started at church. I actually never started out as a bassist. Actually, started out as a drummer at the age of 13. I started to make music at the previous church where I was at. So, like any other kid, you excited to be around the instruments. I actually never played the instrument. There was guys that played, and my job was basically just to assist them with carrying instruments, taking it out of the van, and on a specific day or a specific time the church decided to buy drums, and I was excited. For me, I just never had drums. I was excited the church gonna have drums. Oh my goodness. And they bought the drums to church. I still packed out the drums. I was one of the boys that helped pack out the drums, and when the drums were set up, I still stood there, and then one of the elders came to me and said, "You must go and play." And that's where the musical journey for me started. He said God showed him that I need to play the drums. Funny enough, with no musical experience, I got on the drums that morning and I played. And till this day, I believe that it was inspired by God's Holy Spirit, by the Holy Spirit that inspired me to do that. And that's where the journey basically started. So I played drums from the age of 13 to 16. At 16, I basically switched over to the bass. One Sunday morning at the same church, you know how the small churches are. We're led by the prophets, by the prophetic, and by the Spirit. So the pastor just got out of the seats and said, "Whoa, something is not right." He took me off the drums. He placed me on the bass. I didn't understand what happened that morning. He placed someone else on the drums. We started to play, and out of all the songs that they sang that morning, the only song that I knew was Hallelujah, Hosanna. But I fiddled around, I felt it, I tried to play with the ear, and that's where the musical journey for me basically started. As a bass player, that specific Sunday, actually, both started on the Sunday morning, but in terms of bass, it started on that specific Sunday morning. And from there, ever since, you know, started to meet people, started to meet friends, um, at that time, Conchalo was probably the hit. So you listen to Conchalo's music, Christian Explainers, New Birth, Jimmy Dlutlu was the kind of guy. And I met this guy, amazing jazz guitarist, Dion Elof. I met him, and he introduced me to Marcus Miller. So I walked past his house one day, and he was sitting on his lawn playing guitar, and I approached him, and we started to talk music. And he asked me, "Where do I play?" And I say, "I play at church at Open Doors." Everyone knows Open Doors is File Cake. So he asked, "A File Cake?" I said, "Yes." And then he said, "You know what? Let me give you something." He gave me it's most probably one of Marcus Miller's first albums. It's such an underground vibe. He does some serious work. And from there, the jazz journey basically started. And I went to go sit there by Uncle Dion, and he taught me. I know one of the first cool bass lines that I learned was Breezin'. Started breezing from breezing, it went over to morning. Started to play affirmation and silly love songs, never too much, and the stuff just started to grow. And from there, you sit, you practice, you grow, you start to meet other people at other platforms, and that's where the musical networking basically started. Yeah.
Can you tell us about your musical education?
Daniel, to be honest with you, there was no musical education whatsoever. Everything that started off, you basically learned in church. So you started to play old hymns, Simon Siakoyela, those type of things, the quirkies and those type of stuff. And meeting Mr. Dion Earloff, it went to jazz. And when it came to jazz, that's where you basically started to learn about modes and what modes are. And at that time it's just experimenting. So the moment you learn your first mode, you want to play that mode in every song. So that's where the musical journey basically started. And then I like to read. I'm someone that like to read. I like to do research. I believe there's a lot of people that does, but I'm one of them. And that's where the self musical education basically started. The internet is our friend, so started to Google stuff, started to put stuff together. I know one of the most important things for me personally, in my opinion, is the numbering system that I learned, and I learned that from a friend of mine that played keyboard, Gershwin McCreel. you will most probably not even know this, but I learned that from him, and I taught myself how to understand the notes on the keyboard. Playing with him, it was also like your last minute booking, like my broer speel hier vir ons man, and then most of the songs you don't know. But what I normally did was I would stand next to him and I would read off his hand what he does on the keyboard. And there's times when I could not stand close to him and he would just shout 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And on a later stage, you start to criticize yourself with that and you start to enable yourself to learn how to play by ear. So I would distance myself further from him and then just try and listen what is he actually playing and follow him in terms of that. So musical education, there was none. Everything that I know was research based and basically watching your heroes, Victor Houghton has a lot of. Sorry that I have to mention his name. I know it's a cliche, but he's got a lot of instructional videos. And one of my most important instructional videos that I watched was a video by John Patitucci. And it's also on the internet. Everyone talks about that video of his as well. And one of the important things that I learned there in that video was the spider technique, which teaches you how to strengthen your left hand for consistency, as well as I also discovered while searching for stuff the 24, what do they call it? The 24 fingering technique, something like that. But it is 24 patterns that they give you, different kinds of patterns that you can play. And then restructure yourself, which also allows you to enable your fingers and all that, strengthen it basically for consistency. So there was no musical journey, everything was network based, or something, someone shows you something. And a friend of mine, Mr. Angelo Joseph, he one day we were sitting at his house and we were jamming, messing around, and I heard the guy do this, and I was like, what chord is that? And he's like, no, just a minor chord. I said, nah, a minor chord sounds like that. This is there's something else that you're doing. And up until this day, I still use that minor chord in music because it's basically just so beautiful. I mean, like, it just sounds nice. And I discovered that Mr. Richard Bona likes to use it in his music as well. So that's where the education basically started. And the bulk of it was when I got introduced to jazz, was basically listening to the radio. And when I hear a new song with new developments or new stuff, get it, sit with it, familiarize yourself with it. You never know when you might need it. So that's where the education started.
So, Ashwil, can you tell us about the artists and the bands that you're working with currently?
Yeah, the band Played It. That's the band that I play for. We're a jazz band. Not really well known on the music scene, except for the band is very dynamic in the Wine Estate area. So we most probably mostly play there. The band started off as a also a by mistake gig, if I could put it like that. So there was a function at our church one year. I went to Akadio and I said, "Yo, look here, we've got something at church, man. I need someone that can play jazz music." He opted in, and then I asked Jesse to play with. We asked Jody. The first gig went so well that we decided, you know what, let's start a band. Not like start a band, but let's do this. Um, and then the name Played It basically started off as you book the band for a date, and then we play. Yeah. So that's basically where the name Play Date came from. And Uncle Dion Ilov was the one that basically suggested that we call the band Play. I believe we're no longer band, but we're family. We put the human side first, and then music comes after. That's what we taught ourselves. But a very lovely band. I've learned a lot in that band as well in terms of what your role as a bass player is, but not being limited as a bass player, because when when a solo comes up, the guys look at me and I'm hungry for solos. So I will take it. So the confidence that I've built over the years comes from there. You're always nervous when you go on stage and need to play. But with Play that was never the case, because you know the rap, you know what's going to happen, you know when it happens, what your responsibility is, how you must do it, when you must do it, why you must do it. And whenever we play with Play and the thing starts off, there's no sense of being nervous. And the confidence I got from playing with that band because you got their back and the guys got your back, and you just gel together as a band. And then other artists that I played for, I know I was never on the music scene. Everything started for me in 2012 when I met Trevor Benson. So Sean Antoni sent me on Mixer a message and said, "Hey, I need a bassist for." He didn't even mention Trevor's name. He just said, "I need a bassist for other guy." I was with the guys. He said, "Don't worry, you'll see when we get there." So we went to Jubilee. I met Trevor for the first time. And one of the amazing things that morning, I had to learn 10 songs in 1 hour. Up until this day, I don't know how I did it, but I know I remembered all 10 songs when we left. We rehearsed up until 12. No, yeah, 10 o'clock we started, 11 o'clock we left because the gig started at 12. First gig in Kraaifontein. We had three gigs that day. So we went with Mr. Trevor Benson. We assisted him in terms of his music. Even I was amazed at how quickly I could learn 10 songs in 1 hour. And it wasn't cover songs, it was his original music. So through Trevor Benson, I basically I met Cheslin. We call him Chezzy. Mr. Beautiful, big beautiful woman in Cape Town. He's the guy that hosts that. So he vocaled for Trevor, and he asked me if I don't want to play for his band, and the name of his band was Kensington. And through him, I met a lot of guys. I believe you also know that a lot of stuff happened musically at Doc Smithson out in Kensington. So Kensington sang a lot there, and that's where I started to meet other guys, like one of a lot of the prominent bass players in Cape Town. You met there, you play, you go behind the stage, you talk, you exchange numbers, and that's where it basically started. So I played for Trevor, I played for Chizzy. I haven't played for a lot of artists except for being consistent in church and then playing for Playdate. But one of the most recent developments was Marlon Brains. We played on his song last year, I Give My All. So it played on CCM a couple of times. In fact, it played last week. So we were the band that played on that single of his, and we are currently also working on a number of other songs of his. And he's currently one of the most current artists that I am playing for. And then that's basically the musical journey. In terms of playing with other artists, there wasn't a lot. Bulk of the stuff basically came from playing for Playdate and playing at church.
Very interesting journey, man. It seems like you live on the edge for those 10 songs, huh? Yeah. Can you tell us about the gear that you have? I see you have some nice guitars here, man. This is amazing. This is like wow. This is like guitar even. Can you just I believe you have a story for each guitar. Can you just tell us those stories, man?
Definitely, there's like a lot of yeah, it's a lot of sentimental value attached to these guys. And I know a lot of guys made offers for the bass guitars, but I told them there's sentimental value, man, so I can't sell it. And even if I don't play with it a lot, I'm keeping it because it reminds me of where I was and where God brought me to and where I am now. Okay, so this was basically my very first bass that I got. I sold Bry. I sold Bry to get this bass. Yeah, and not being fortunate to afford a bass guitar, that had to be the route to get a bass guitar. Actually, playing in youth, used to play with the churches. The church had this blood red Rat Miller four string strings. It's yeah, when you turn your fingers, fingers is seer man. Te klaar gespeel het. But yeah, that was the bass that I basically played with at church. And then I just one night I just went to go lay in my bed and told myself, you know what, I can't anymore. In fact I made this sheet, and on the sheet I made blocks columns, and 30 columns was on there, and that was now me collecting my money. 30 days in the month, 30 columns. So I had a number of people in mind that I knew that would support me. And I castled at the time, so I put some money away to buy stuff. And I basically sold bright plates. And the amazing thing of the church where I'm current at, the youth supported me throughout. And now, at that time, you starting off, your dream basis, you have a Yamaha in mind, or a Fender in mind. And this was not the ideal dream bass, but it was the best bass at the time that I could purchase. So, your amazing guy, my youth leader, amazing guy. at the time, Aubrey Martin. So got the money, went to Paul Bosnus to buy this bass. So we got there, and then they had this one and they had the black one. So I was looking around, and then didn't see anything that I liked, and then everything came down to this one or the black one. So I stood there, asked what's the price. In fact, I was 1,000 rand short that day with the money. I think the bass was 3,800, and I had like a 2.8. Aubrey stood next to me, asked me, okay, so what one are you gonna take? He still suggested the black one because white fades out. I said, nah, I love this white bass, man. I'm gonna take it. He said, well, the choice is yours. But I told him that I don't have enough money. Like, can I lay by or whatever? He said, no, test the bass and take it. And that's where I have a lot of respect for him and admire him because he said, "You want the bass? Do you like the bass?" I said, "Yes." He went to the till and he placed the extra 1,000 rand on the bass. Bought this bass, and with this bass is where the musical journey started with Kensington them and Mr. Trevor Benson them, and all those cats. So this was my very first bass, my first love. Okay, so my second bass that I got was this Yamaha TRB. I remember at the time I was consumed by Richard Bona and what he does. And if you admire someone, you know, you want to look like that person and you want to. And this was the closest base to, or this was the base that basically came closest to how I could be like Richard Bona and kind of like be in your element and try to do what he does. And I remember I worked as an intern at social development. And for a whole year, I when I came out of work, I would get off at Belleville Station and then walk from Belleville Station to Musiekwereld. At that time, they were still in the church. So they had the Yamaha TRB there. And every afternoon I would go, I would sit with the bass, I would sit with and I know the guy there, Carlo, he was a cool guy. When I came in, he was like, nah, Ash, go and play with the bass. So I would sit there, do my thing, admire this bass, desire this bass. And one afternoon I went and told me, bro, the bass is sold. And I think it was 15,000 rand at the time. Yeah, I was like, I was sad. He called me aside. He told me, but you know what? I have mine and I'm planning on selling mine. And the owner of Musiekwereld at that time had the Yamaha TRB P2. The 5 it was hanging there. You remember that bass? He called me and he said, you know what? The owner's going to sell that bass to me. But I also need the money so I can sell this one to you. I was excited. I went home. I made my numbers. I said, okay, nah, this is what I need to do. He sold this bass to me for 9,500 rand. I think it was a very good bargain. I bought this bass in 2013, and I've never had a problem with this bass ever since I bought it from him. This bass carried me through. I remember when I go play at gigs, guys would always compliment the tone and the depth of this bass. You don't have to do a lot. You just lay down the groove. You just lay down the fingers. The bass does the rest. And I bought this bass from Carlo. And he told me, you know what, I'm going to wait for you until you have the money. When you have the money, let me know and you can purchase a bass from me. And that's how I basically bought this bass. And I was excited my first TRB.
I'm excited for you.
I was excited for my first TRB. But I will tell you the reason why I believe God basically blessed me with everything at the end of it. And I'll share that with you. But this was basically my second bass. Okay, so this was my third bass, my crown jewel. It wasn't actually her. It was, I think it was, I don't know what you call it, the Mark One or the model before this. I know the one with the big body. So that was my first one. And I know one of the boys in church, they wanted to basically learn how to play bass, but he didn't have a nice bass at the time. And I remember one.
Where was the Ratmala?
The Red Mullah was gone because the guy who had the Red Mullah, he left the church. Yeah. And
So what you're saying, the Ratmala guy has left the building.
yeah, he left the church. He went to another church. And so one day I walk in town, and don't laugh. I walk into town, and there's a Cash Crusaders there, in Adelaide Street. I walked in, and you know, what you normally do is you go scout for things, and something just told me look up, and I looked up, and I saw, I don't know why, but this bass guitar was standing right on top against the roof, and when no one could see it, and I went to the lady at the till and I asked her, "Can you please take that thing down for me?" She got the ladder, took off the base, and when she gave it was still wrapped in cling wrap. When she gave the base to me and I did this, I saw 1,999 rand. I told myself, I must, I must grab this base. Not a lie. I took it out of the cling wrap. Um, Started playing with it, and I told myself, whoever sold this bass to Cash Crusaders was definitely a bass player because this bass was clean, the intonation was set. I never touched the intonation when I bought this bass. It still had the Dario strings on, and as the bass is now, that's how I bought it with the strap and everything. I bought it for 1,000, and um, I was so excited. I told myself I still had my last 2,000 rand before payday. I told myself I'm gonna lay by this base. Put 1,000 rand down. I still told I know they give you like 3 months or a month or 2 months. I told this lady 1 week that I'm coming back. So I went to this chappie at chapel and I told him, you know what, you can buy my A6. I think I sold it to him for 2,000 rand. I sold my A6 to him for 2,000. I said, I just want the money back so that I can buy the other bass. Um, he bought the bass, and then I got the rest of the money, and I went to go pick this bass up. And beautiful. And I always admired Bartolini pickups at the time, and this was my first bass with Bartolini pickups, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. I love it. I have some videos where I'm playing with this bass, and one of the things that guys always commend me on is your tone. I even when I used to be on Instagram, not anymore, but I know a lot of the international cats even. Guys from Brazil, from Turkey, from the States, from Australia, that used to sneak on your videos. One of the stuff that they would always say is, "Boy, we love your tone. You got an amazing tone on this bass." Yeah, they always commend it, and that to me was amazing, because that to me showed that if you if you are consistent in terms of what you do and you have a goal, you can reach the world out there. But you need to do it beautifully. And that the fact that guys from Turkey, Brazil, the States, Australia, even China, commented on what you do and your tone, that opened it for me. And I told myself, start working on writing your own songs because people love it. Okay, so this was basically my fourth bass that I bought, and this bass was inspired by Mr. Michael Manson himself. So it's not entirely the bass that he has, but the look and feel of the bass um, came from what he basically has. So listening to his music, having an one of his albums as well, and just hearing how this bass sounds. And then I know when Gospel According to Jazz Chapter 3 came out, I know Carl Whalen plays with a Fender basically on that. I think it's a goldish one. And when I heard the tone of that bass, I told myself I need to get myself a Fender. At that time, again, muziekwereld, I admired this four string. It was like an orange burn four string Fender that hang there. And for 12,500 rand, I went there, admired the bass, thinking, how am I going to get the money to buy this bass? But okay, it's fine. Not in a hurry because you already have guitars, don't be greedy. And then one day when I wanted to go put something down on the bass, Carlo told me the bass is gone. So every time when I went the bass that I wanted was gone. But it's fine. I told him, yo, that's sad, man. Yes, sis, don't you guys have any other Fenders? At the back of the shop, they had this one. And he told me, we have our last Fender. And the four string went for 12 and a half. He told me, you know what? I'm going to give this bass guitar to you for 8,000 rand. Brand new Fender, Mexican jazz Fender for 8,000 rand. And add 100 rand, I'll give you a bag with it. I was like, are you serious? He said, yeah. I put my head together. I told him, okay, I'll see you in the week. Came, bought the bass, and ever since that time, I love the bass. Beautiful tone. I can be honest with you. Sometimes you purchase things, but you don't understand it. And at the time when I bought this bass, I loved it. I loved the tone. I never understood the bass. I have this guitar for 4 years, and only after 4 years, I now understand what it is that I need to do with this guitar, how my approach should be in terms of music. And it's not just a matter of playing, but you really need to understand the feel of the bass and know what it is that you want to come out of the bass so that the bass can give you that. So this beauty, I love it. Okay, so this is my last guitar that I bought. I actually bought it just before lockdown started. I bought it.
Lockdown, baby.
It's a lockdown baby, yeah. Bought it from someone on Gumtree, saw the bass. Made contact with the guy just to find out that I actually know him, Whitney. His name is Whitney, he plays drums. I was like, yo, I know you guy. And he's like, yeah, no, we know that we used to play together back in the day. And I was like, yo, okay, no, it's fine. I would really like to purchase a bass. The reason for purchasing this four string is I told myself that I need to familiarize myself with playing four string, and that is for strengthening my hand when it comes to slapping. And the fact that the strings are so wide apart also allows you to practice consistency and try and do exactly the same thing that you are doing here on all your other bases and not be limited in terms of the physical. So that's why I bought this four string, and also for play date. And a lot of the songs desire and requires groove. So just to keep it in the pocket and sitting on that four strings. So that is the reason why I got me this four string as well. Amazing bass. The reason why I'm Kerbo is I always wanted a Kerbo bass. I always it there was just never a Kerbo bass that was for sale where I could purchase one. I always wanted a Kerbo, and well, I needed a four string at the time, and lucky for me, it was Kerbo. So I went for it. I bought it, and to be honest with you, um, Dion Kennedy still sent me a message when I bought the bass. He said, "Yo, I see you have a Kerbo." I said, "Yeah, four string." He said,
You used to have one.
he used to have, yeah. And he told me he had a six string. And explain. He told me the story behind.
Purple.
Same color,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
color,
yeah,
yeah, same color. Just the six string. And he told me the bass fell, and he had to make away with it because the bass fell, it
yeah.
cracked and all that jazz. So amazing bass,
I can
amazing
only
bass.
imagine.
It's a,
I can
it's a,
only imagine.
I love the tone. It's also a matter of understanding what this bass gives you.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of high range on this bass, more low range, mid range.
yeah,
So it's not your type of soloing type of bass. So this bass basically pushes you towards that level 42 type of music,
okay.
and keeping it in that area when playing with this bass, but not be limited by that.
Yeah,
Also
yeah,
understanding other genres with this
yeah,
bass. But I made when I bought this bass, I made a cover video. One of Alvin Slaughter's new songs. So I made a short snippet of it, just to give a dem. Okay, the strings on here is not new, but just to give a demonstration in because a lot of guys ask me about the tone.
yeah, yeah,
So I made the video, and I was amazed at how this bass sounded on the recording
yeah.
when I made that video. So for four string, I must say, I desired a four string Fender. I'm keeping this baby.
Tell me, amplification. What do you use currently? Can you just tell us about that?
Um, I used to play with a Behringer 120 watt amp. Um, it used to be the church's one that I bought it. I hope my pastor doesn't see this video. And then one night they broke into the chapel, and then they stole the amp. And then I told myself, okay, I need to get the amp. So I bought this. I have a Warwick 80 watt amp standing in the corner.
Yeah,
I bought that from the boy in the church, or not the boy in the church, the guy that used to play bass in the church, just to go on with it, man. But I felt at the time 80 watt doesn't work for me because Playdate plays, platform is big.
yeah.
So I had to get something stronger, and then I don't know if you know Rian. Um,
Rian van
that
Wyk.
yeah, Rian van Wyk, yeah. I got this T's electronics from him, and he sold it to me for a next to nothing price. And I'm happy with this amp because I played with this amp about 3 years ago at Pastor Marlon's concert out in Strandfontein,
Yeah,
and Rian brought this amp. Played with. I was like, yo, this amp kicks, and later found out that Rian was to sell it. I made I made haste so that I can get the money
yeah, yeah,
and just buy the amp. And I'm happy with this amp. It gives me what I want when I go and play with Playdate.
yeah,
It's open floor, it's dance music. You want to sit tight when the guys, and you don't want to be loud, but you want the guys to feel you. And with that amp, I know I had problems because when we played, Uncle Dion would always, "Yeah, I can't hear you, man. Make louder." And the amp would already be open, so it would be peaking already. And I told myself, this is a practice amp. It's not for gig. So I got me this, and when the bass gets opened up, the guys smile because they can feel the vibe. So this DC Electronics 250 watt does it for me. Does it for me.
Interesting, man. Can you give any advice for young up and coming bass players and musicians out there?
The advice that's currently sticking with me is my journey. And I believe there's a lot of other people, but my journey started with being available, being committed, and being faithful when it comes to God's work. And that's what I actually wanted to say earlier. That's how I got all of these bases. I believe it's because of being committed to God's work, being available for God's work, and being faithful when it comes to the ministry. And faithful starts with, and I hope Winston doesn't watch this video, faithful starts with um, when Winston used to book me for a gig on a Friday, and I had to be in youth. I had to cancel that gig with Winston and tell him, bro, I need to be in youth, man, because you had the responsibility there. And I always told myself that die Afrikaanse spreekwoord sê, nie Afrikaanse skrif sê, getrou in die min en ek sal jou veel aanstel in die hemel. And I always walk with that, be faithful in the few. God's going to appoint you over many one day when you're in heaven. And this is a start. This is basically just a milestone. So when I see these things, it's not to brag or anything. And that's the reason why I mentioned prices. It's to basically encourage the next person that's also sitting out there, so that he can say that if God did it for me, then what is the thing that I need to do? Be committed, be faithful, and be available to God's work. And then Joshua 1, God tells Joshua 1, in Joshua 1, God tells Joshua,
Preach, preach.
if you do the following, then I'm going to make you successful. Read my word, speak my word, love my word, meditate on my word, and walk according to this word. And I'm going to make you successful, God says. And I believe in that. Sorry that I have to preach, but that's the background. That's where all this started, basically.
Ashwil, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate your time and the effort that you put into this interview. I'm sure that many young people and older people as well will be inspired by your testimony, by your journey, and everything. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and share this video with your family and friends. Please follow From the Cape with Bass on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much. God bless you.